Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series, Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. In this series, titled Relationships Are Key, Candelario Valenzuela of VS Pro Painting will be sharing how he has grown his painting company to $2 million in annual revenue with a 100% year-over-year growth rate, and the advice he has for ambitious painting company owners who are looking to follow in his footsteps. In episode 1, Candelario discussed the importance of effective systems to scale. In episode 2, this episode, Candelario will outline how knowing your numbers is critical and which numbers he most focuses on. In episode 3, Candelario will discuss the importance of reinvesting into your business and the decisions he has made as his company has grown. And in the final episode, episode 4, Candelario will deep dive into the importance of networking and some actionable insights he has on how to most effectively network for your painting company. If you want to ask Candelario questions related to anything in this podcast series, you can do so on our exclusive Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook. Just search for Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook and request to join the group, or type in the URL facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. Again, that URL is facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. There you can ask Candelario questions directly by tagging him with your question so you can see how anything discussed here applies to your particular painting company. What's up, man?
Mr. Brandon.
Excited to have you back, brother.
No, man. Thank you for having me again.
The first episode, I think, was absolutely key. Felt like I received a master class in business administration there. So I'm looking forward to diving into numbers.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely it was a great topic. The last one, and definitely this one, it's things that are so important in business that sometimes we oversee, and they're just so critical for growing a painting company. But yeah, man, I'm so excited about talking about numbers today.
Yeah, it is numbers are a language of business, right? It's kind of what it's all about at the end of the day. And yet so many business owners are not really on top of their P&L. I mean, we speak with a lot of painting contractors, obviously through strategy sessions and whatnot, and we tend to speak with more advanced ones, right? Like you have to be a certain level of advancement really to be focused on marketing and investing into your company. And still, so many people that we speak with don't actually know their gross profit margin, their net profit margin. They have little to no idea really what's happening financially in their business.
Right. I mean, I was there when I started the business. I don't have a degree in accounting. So I was I was a painter, and that was all I knew how to do back then. And it was kind of like I was going with my guts. So every time I sold a job, I produced a job, I just felt it was good. So I felt like I was doing good, right?
Food's on the table. There's at least a little bit of money in the business bank account, so things are working.
Yeah. Just but at the end you start seeing, okay, cool, like why the money's not growing, why I'm selling a lot of jobs and I'm not being profitable. What's happening? Like I feel like I'm working more and I'm making less. So what's going on? It's like
Right.
it's like basically running a car without having the gauges in there, like having the gas, how much gas the car has, the oil, like where's the oil pressure at. It's basically going with your guts. A lot of us as contractors, as business owners, we're just going with our feelings, with our guts, what we feel. And it's kind of like we're going in there blind until you start realizing that by knowing your numbers, you get to know, okay, cool, like I am being profitable, or I'm bidding the jobs too low, or something's going on. You are able to find a leak in your business whenever you know your numbers, if there's one.
Yeah, I think this idea of like you're working more and you seem to be making less, or maybe you don't seem to be making any more, is so common. This idea of mistaking activity for achievement. John Wooden said that. Don't mistake activity for achievement. And I think it's really common. We're busy, we're doing all these jobs, we're landing jobs, and man, we're growing. Things are good, revenue's up, but yet the business bank account looks the same.
Yeah, sometimes we have that tendency that the more busy we are, the more money we're making, and that's basically sometimes might be a mistake. It's not
Right.
always that.
Yeah, it's not a super illogical thought process, but oftentimes things are falling through the cracks, and it's not really playing out that way in reality.
Yeah. So for me, I knew at a point I had to find a way for me to know my number. So I had an idea because I was before I started the business, I was looking in, I was going to the universal training courses in YouTube and Google and all that stuff. And I remember I was looking at, hey, like what things I need to look up, or out for having a business, like what numbers am I supposed to be looking at and things like that. So I started getting self-educated, but I knew that at a point I was going to have to delegate that to someone that really knew what they were doing, that they can teach me how to understand numbers better.
I love it. So you were going this self-education route on YouTube, trying to figure out your key metrics so you can start to dial those in. And then at what point did you decide? I guess, how did that go? And then at what point did you decide to maybe engage with a professional?
Yeah, so it was the first 3 years in business. So we're currently, on year number 7 in August, and it was about 4 years ago that I remember I was before I had my CPO, before I hired my CPA, I was just doing it on Excel sheets. I was going in there and just plugging in my numbers, and I'll show up to my tax lady with a whole bunch of paperwork and all that stuff. I remember the last time this tax person that I used to do my taxes, she's like, next time you come with all this paperwork, I'm not doing your taxes. Because it was just a scrumble, man, all over the place. I had so many receipts, so many forms, because of course I didn't have money to invest back then when I started. So it was just kind of like, okay, as I go, I'm gonna be invested in the business and all that cool stuff. Um,
Sure.
but it got to the point where it was just getting out of hands. I felt like I was working too much time doing my numbers, and which I mean, in a way served me a lot because I got to learn a couple of things the hard way. But it was just too much work, and I knew I needed to focus on something else. If I really wanted to grow in the business, like if I really wanted to scale, I need to focus my time in different aspects of the business to be able to grow. And I remember that 3 years passed by, and then I started, and this basically the conversation started with one of my CPA was actually my customer, so we did a project for him, and one day I just asked him, hey, what do you do for a living? And he started telling me about he does all the accounting and all that good stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be able to do a one-to-one one day, talk about this. And I remember the first time that I met with him, he gave me kind of like a rundown, an overview of what he could do for me. And he showed me 3 packages, right? He showed me a small package, a medium package, and a large package. And the large package, of course, was covering basically every single information or aspects of numbers in the business. And then the small one was just running my accounting, bookkeeping, and all that, just kind of like a smaller attention to our company, I guess. But that's the only one that I could afford. And I was like, one day I'm going to be able to afford the biggest package that you have there. And that's when I pulled the trigger. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna start little by little. And now we're like, we're I guess at that big package where he's running all the P&Ls, where we meet every month and go over our numbers. It's just we have a live, like I was talking to you yesterday, we have a live dashboard that we're able to see our numbers basically week by week, day by day, on what's going on in our numbers from each project and overall what the business is doing.
So was that idea that he had several tiers and that you could move upward, was that part of what attracted you to him?
Yeah, so he was really transparent, right? And for me, I think, and this is something that, for everyone out there that is looking at this podcast or listening to this, it's really important that the person that you're going to bring on, especially with whenever it's going to start messing with money and all that stuff, it's important to make sure you have trust. Like there's trust in between you and that person. So for me, the way that he broke it down on my end and shown me what value he will bring into the table was really important. And plus, he was my past customer. I dealt with him before. I knew we were meant for each other. So definitely someone that's able to create that trust with you is has to be really important, especially on the accounting side of things.
So you came across this person because he was your customer and you were just talking with him and figured it out. Pretty spontaneous. What would you recommend to somebody listening who would like to find someone like this and kind of wants to take a more proactive approach? Do you have thoughts there?
Yeah, so before I brought him in, of course I did my homework, right? I went online and I started looking for other CPAs and I started kind of like, having conversations with multiple of them. So definitely you have to do your homework, right? Go out there, look, talk to different people, have that sense. I always because I spoke with people that were only on the phone, but I say the best way for me, and this is just the way that I see things, is like one to one in person. So I had to go in person. I had to meet whoever was going to do run my account. Definitely, getting to know multiple people in the accounting side of things, or looking for different CPAs that can do the work for you. At the end of the day, just having that feel and that trust is just gonna, you know, is gonna most of the time is you're gonna hit the nail. And that's what happened with my accountant. His name is Todd, by the way. He's an amazing person. And I always thank our achievements to him. He has a lot to do in what we do. So it's kind of like in our growth. It's a big one for me. So definitely all the time is always looking out for um, keeping an eye open on who can be the right fit for your company and that has that same culture that you have and all that good stuff. So Todd
I love it.
met all the requirements.
I love it. I will drop a small plug here. Someone I'm friends with. If you guys are listening and you don't have someone, I recommend you do reach out to Daniel Honan, bookkeeping for painters. He runs a really good company, accounting for bookkeeping for painting companies. Worth at least talking with him. Um, okay, cool. So I want to get into all the numbers, but before we do that, I want to actually figure out what changes in your business occurred as a result of you becoming more familiar with your numbers, you becoming more on top of them? Did you make any strategic shifts? Were there any pricing changes? Were there any customers you no longer served? What happened?
Yes. So the first thing that happened when I started getting to know my numbers, I had to do I found a leak in my business. And I think that was one of
That's scary.
the yeah,
You
it
work
was.
so hard. You work so hard. Then there's a leak.
Yes, and it's again, it's whenever you don't know your numbers, you're basically running blind. You don't know what's like you think you know what's going on, but you don't really know what's going on. Um, so I remember whenever I first hired my CPA and we started, onboarding, putting all the numbers together and all that good stuff. He started grabbing all the numbers from in my end and all that. And I remember back then we started seeing that some of the shops were not being profitable. And it was just kind of like, really? Like, what's going on? We had multiple crews, and one crew was just the one that was like our numbers were coming negative.
Hmm.
So we started digging in deep, right? And I started showing up at the job sites, talking to the people that of course, to the crew lead and to the people that were working in that crew. And I started finding out, man, that the reason why we were not being profitable, and that we were having a leak basically on profits was because our team lead was letting our guys leave early. They were not finishing the jobs on time. So they were basically they had a bad crew lead. And I remember that it was I spoke to the crew leader. I was like, hey, we're noticing that we're slacking on certain things, like we're not hitting our targets on the production side of things, like what's going on. We try to fix the problem, and but we started seeing the numbers didn't change. So at the end of the day, I had to make that executive call and let the crew lead go. And after I let him go and I put a new crew lead in place, our numbers spiked up.
Huh.
So that I can say that's one of the greatest examples there to why you should know your numbers. Because if not, you could have a leak and not and be able to detect it. Where is the leak at? And it was just, it was just amazing because I was like, oh my God, like if knowing your numbers can show you what's going on in your business, definitely I want to keep on doing this. And from there, it's just there's a whole bunch of other aspects of why knowing your numbers are critical.
Did you ever quantify? Did you ever look at that crew and figure out the change in profitability from before the crew lead left to after and figure out how much money that crew lead was costing you?
Yeah, so percentage wise, so basically on our gross profits on those jobs, we're like at under 20%. Like it was about what 27 gross profit that we were making on those jobs. And then whenever we brought the new crew lead, it spiked above 50% gross profit. So we were losing about 25, in gross profits.
So
25.
essentially each of those jobs was half as valuable to you because you had the wrong crew lead.
Yes. So we were losing. So we were, if it was $10,000 job, we were losing, $2,500 or $5,000.
Yikes.
Yeah. So it was really, really bad, man. But again, knowing your numbers is really crucial, and you're able to get to dig because this was going on for a couple of months already. So we were losing some money with that, basically with that specific group.
Sure. Dang, man. Um, okay. So that's a really good example of a shift that you made. Were there any other, that's probably the most flagrant, but any other shifts that you made that kind of were aha moments after you started diving into your numbers?
Yeah. So after with that being said, so it's going to be on knowing, like, for example, what was my production rate, right? Where were my numbers are if I was charging what I was supposed to be charging. And we came up with my production rate back in I guess 3 years ago. We were like at $65 per hour, right? And it's like every year is increasing. And the only way that we're able to kind of like keep moving our numbers up is because we see the results, that if we're able to sell at 65 and then bump it to 75, and we still have a high margin on closing rate, then we're able to keep on bumping the price up every year, or as it asks for it.
Yeah. Love it. All right. So let's get into some of the numbers. What are the key numbers you look at?
So definitely gross profit and net margins. For me, it's kind of like really, really, really important. Whenever I'm looking at like a whole month for our business, right? So we're looking to be above 50% in net margin, in the gross profits, I'm sorry. And net margins, we have a big goal for this year. So we're trying to hit 33% net margins. We're currently about 27 percent in net margin, which is pretty decent.
All right. So let's dive into this. So gross profit. Do you use W-2 painters or subcontractors?
So we're a subcontractor, mom.
Okay. So when you just make sure I fully understand the revenue model, how do you pay your subcontractors? Like, is it a percentage of the job? It sounds like it's not. If when the crew lead was letting them go earlier, you were losing that much.
So
That
whenever 3 years ago, we had a hybrid, right? We had in-house and we have subs, right?
And
And
the example you gave was in-house.
in-house, correct,
Got it. Okay.
correct.
So you pay your subs a percentage of the project.
Correct. So we pay basically what we do is we do a split. So we will split material costs, we'll split any additional cost that we have, and we'll split that. And then we'll go basically half and half on the profit. So we'll do 50-50%.
Got it. Okay. And then, so you guys will go 50-50 on the profit with your subcontractor. So you're transparent with them then about the pricing and kind of what that project looks like.
Yes. So basically what we typically do whenever we get our subs on board, we'll go ahead and go over kind of like what we have for pricing. So we're really transparent on our end. And we'll go over our numbers together and all that good stuff. So that way they can see what they're making on their end.
Did you guys buy the materials?
So we purchase the materials, we purchase basically everything that we need to purchase on our end, like any type of materials or good stuff like that. They just put their tools and all that good stuff, and then we'll do all the materials.
So let's say it's a $10,000 painting project. What is that probably going to look like in terms of materials, in terms of what the subcontractors get paid, and then in terms of what you guys walk away with?
Yeah, so what we'll do, and this is something that we started implementing this year. What we typically do, it's we'll go ahead and take all the material out once we start doing job costing, right? So like let's say it's a $10,000 job and we spent $2,000 in material. So we have $8,000 left, right? So then what we'll do is we'll do a split on those $8,000.
Okay, so you'll pay them 4,000.
Right, right.
But then wouldn't that be a 40% gross profit?
So we'll do that, but we have thank you for telling me this. So we have so what we do is we'll have a 20%. So we'll remove 20% for basically, and that's for our sales, our overhead. We'll remove those 20% and then split basically in half the profits.
Got it. Okay, so when we're talking about the gross profit that you want to walk away with, so at a $10,000 project, you want to walk away with $5,000.
Right. So we're trying to make the 50%, correct?
And then that $5,000, has that accounted for project management or any sales commissions?
Yes, so that's where we accounting those 20%, that's where we're accounting basically the commissions that are going out.
Okay, do you mind sharing your commission structure for your estimator or salesperson and
Yes. So we have our production manager. Production manager, it's they're able to make 3% percent on the total revenue, right? So if we're selling $10,000, they'll be able to make 3% out of that, and then 1% it's going to be for collecting the payment on time, and then this is just possibilities that they can make that money, right? If they collect the payment on time, they'll get 1% if they get a 5-star Google review, and then they'll get the other 1% if the job was hitting it was on the green, basically, it was hitting all the margins.
yeah,
So they get up to 3%, and then plus their salary, right?
sure. How about the salesperson?
Salesperson, we have a small salary, and then we have 5% for commission, and this is based on the revenue of the job.
Got it. Okay, so they get paid on the full revenue of the project. Okay, so the gross profit's pretty clear. You're removing the commissions from the production manager. You're removing the 5% that's paid to the salesperson.
Right,
But the bases you're not accounting for in those, the salesperson and the production manager base. Those are an overhead.
right. They're part of the overhead, and that's what we do the takeoff of the 20%. That's just kind of
Okay.
like taking a shot at it as
Yeah.
well. So it removes some of that weight too.
Got it. So remove some
But
of that.
we'll remove that 20% because and I remember I was talking to one of my mentors about this, and we were conversating on how to structure the payment based things. And I was like, okay, so if I'm raising my prices, like how like do I share that with the subs, or how does that work? And I remember he told me, well, selling is a different skill. If you can have basically, and what we do is we'll talk with our subs and we're like, what numbers do you guys feel comfortable with? Like on making basically like a daily, like let's say a daily rate, like what do you guys feel comfortable with? And then we're able to know, okay, cool. Like let's say a crew feels comfortable with making $750 a day, right? And the job is accounted for, 2 days. We know that 1,500 bucks is going to be what's going to solidify them. So we know that we have to sell a job that is over that is basically that we're making it happen in 2 days. We
Mhm.
have to double that plus our 20%. So that way we're able to pay them that amount and we can hit our numbers at the end, like our margins at the end of the project.
Sure.
So as we increase prices, we want to make sure our sub also are there happy with the numbers, because that's for all, for us, we go and follow the 3 Ps, which is people, processes, and profit. So people are a really important thing for us. So we want to make sure that our subs are that they're super happy, right? And most of the time you'll see if the numbers that you're giving them are not right, because you'll start seeing that they'll be complaining about numbers and all that stuff. But that's when we have to adjust and make sure that, okay, like if we're taking out that 20% out the top, how can we basically compensate for that? And it's by raising our prices. But that doesn't impact the way that we pay them. So it's just basically it's going to impact us in a positive way, because then we're going to be more profitable.
Sure. So then let's get into the net margin. You quoted some really high net margins. I think
Yeah.
if you can hit 20%, you're doing really well. You said 27% with a goal to get to 33%. Is that pre or post owner contributions, so like owner payment?
So I get my owner payment, and that's after my owner payment.
That's after.
Yes,
So
yes.
you've been paid, everyone's been paid, all the materials, the whole thing's been paid, and you have 27% left over in your bank account, like the business bank account.
Correct, correct, correct.
Candelario, you are either paying yourself extremely cheaply or you are doing this really well.
I'm probably paying myself too cheap, man.
But I think you're doing pretty well, because you'd have to
So
be paying yourself dirt cheap to be hitting 27 to 33% at $2
so
million. dollars.
So one thing that so we don't have yet an office space. So I think that's what's helping us a lot too with this. I know that this is gonna probably change next year. But this year we're taking basically advantage of the situation that we don't have an office space. We're in a hunt for it already, and we're thinking that it's gonna be late this year or beginning of next year. But I know that that's gonna be hitting our overhead too. So that saves us a lot of money, and then also that we don't have a lot of W-2s. So we have the majority of them are subs, right? And we're able to manipulate the numbers like what I was mentioning to you earlier. We know how much money they're comfortable with, and we're able to, boost up the prices or bring up the prices higher, so that way we can be more profitable per job. So
Yeah.
every time that we see that are like we didn't hit margins on 2, 3 jobs, then we go in and dig in deeper in those jobs and see what happened in those jobs, why we didn't hit our numbers, and then we start kind of like making changes, what we need to do so that we can start hitting those numbers for those type of jobs.
Yeah. I think one thing I want to dive into is what the individual P&Ls look like, because I know you basically are tracking by project the profitability. So
Right.
what does that look like? How frequently are you looking at that? Because that level of granularity is not really, most people don't have that.
Right. So we're looking at the P&Ls every month, and then for per job is every week. So we're so what happens is on the week, like for the end of the week, our production manager runs all the job costing. So he does all his job costing, and then he sends it out to the accounting, right? To the CPA, and then he's the one that's able to, okay, cool. He oversees it. Uh, we have something that's called Dex. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that's where you input all the invoices, the receipt. Well, I'm sorry, all the receipts and all that good stuff. And then we're able to kind of like reconciliate all those numbers put together so that we see, okay, cool, the invoice ID is coming from this job here. So we're able to match and make sure that our production manager, did his work correct and that the numbers were right. Then after we do that, then I'm able to, it gets sent to me, and then on Monday I already have it in my dashboard, and I'm able to go in there and look at that job and see, okay, cool, like, did we hit all our margins, or where did we miss? It was labor cost was too high, or we spent too much money in labor, or we spent too much money in material. And then I just basically every week I'm looking all the jobs that we did the past week that were turned in by Friday.
And so this monthly review that you're doing, are you doing this with your accountant?
So this is with the CPA, yeah. So we're basically we'll do a Zoom meeting, and then we'll go. I'll have the dashboard, and then he'll just do a presentation, and then he'll explain all the numbers to me on what's basically what the numbers are for each project for the month, and then we'll look at the actuals and the budgeted.
Yeah, there's just no way that you can get the net margins you're talking about if you're not on top of your numbers,
Yeah.
especially running a subcontractor model, which can make it a little bit more arduous in some ways to hit the gross profit.
No, definitely. And again, it's whenever talking about this at the beginning, it's really crucial, it's really important. And whenever I started seeing how the numbers were changing the way that I was doing business, I was like, I gotta dig in deeper, right? And I don't consider myself as a greedy guy, and it's not like, that I'm like, oh my God, I want to make this crazy money. That's not like, always in my head. I care a lot about people, but numbers help you kind of realize if you can make change. Because if we had, I remember one day, and I met with Jason Phillips. I remember he came out to Austin, and then Jason was like, "Hey, Candelario, how's your sales, man? How you doing? How's your production manager?" And then I told him, "Oh my God, like we're actually selling at a 60% closing rate." And he's like, "Candelario, closing rates are vanity, and are profit is sanity." So he's like, you need to bump up your prices. And I remember, man, I was like, okay, cool. I did something that I hadn't done, right? And I bumped up my price. It was at it was $10 under than what I was at per hour, and I bumped it, and our closing rate came a little bit down, but our margins started going higher. So definitely it's something that you're able to work with your numbers once you really know them, right? You're able to see, okay, cool, like this is where I'm at this production rate, so I can bump it up and then just make more money.
And that's a really important point too, because if you weren't tracking your numbers, you weren't tracking your margins closely, and you were afraid to raise your prices, then you raise them, and you do start tracking your close rate, because you'll probably be inclined to do that if you were afraid to raise your prices because you thought you wouldn't close as much. And then you see a dip, you'll probably be like, "Oh, I was right. I shouldn't have done it. I knew I shouldn't have done it. I knew it was going to hurt our close rate." And then you'll lower your price again. Meanwhile, all you're doing is making the hamster wheel go faster, and you stay on it because you're not understanding that you're actually making more money working less after you raise the prices.
Right, right, right.
One of
So
the
that
things, yeah, I'll go
you
ahead. Okay, one of the things your mentor said that I really liked that I just want to point out was when you talked about what should we do if we raise our prices relative to how we pay the subcontractors, and how those are different skill sets. And I think the way that you're looking at it, hey, what do you guys want to make? What do you feel good about? And then what do they deserve to make in terms of the quality, efficiency, how many times are there callbacks versus not, right? Things like that. Um, you separating those things, I think, is really important. because you selling, you becoming, let's say you just become just the world's best sales organization for painting projects. That doesn't mean your subcontractors should necessarily be the world's highest paid subcontractors in the painting industry. Probably not, unless they happen to also be the most exceptional, which would be quite the coincidence. But I think there needs to be a divide between the skill sets and sort of responsibility and where the earnings are happening.
Yes, and that because I was a subcontractor before, right? And one of the things that whenever you jump into the driver's seat and you start, being the contractor subs, subbing work to other people, it's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna take care of my subs, they're gonna make a lot of money and all that stuff. But as you go, then you start realizing that there's different skill sets in different parts of the business, and definitely in the sales part of things it's a different because we're always training, right? We're paying for training. We'll go out there to the boot camp, and we'll invest in what we're in the sales skills and all that stuff. So it's a different skill set that definitely has to be compensated to the salespeople.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are skills that pay the bills.
Right.
Well, that's what I call those. Well, 33%. You said your target for your net margin was 33%. That is very
That's
specific.
that's that's our target, right? That's what we wanna hit this year, and then we're at 27% currently.
Why such a specific number? How'd you come up with 33%?
So we look at our budget, and then we look at our actuals, and based on what our actuals are saying, it just basically is telling us that we might hit that goal.
Okay. So you're seeing upside scenario. This is possible. Let's aim for it.
Correct. Correct.
That's
So
great.
I guess it might be a little stretchy, but it's something that it could be done. So whenever we're able to see it on the radar, then we're like, okay, cool, let's shoot for it, right? But
Yeah.
it can be done. So we can shoot for
Yeah. If you hit 33% this year, we need to have another episode
it.
just on that.
Yeah, and I'll have my dashboard here and put it out so that we can all take a look at
It'd be
it.
wonderful. So okay, we have gross profit, we have net margin. What other numbers? Maybe we can just talk about kind of what the dashboard includes. Obviously, the profitability of each project, your gross project profit's really important, and then how much money you're keeping at the end of paying all your overhead, marketing, investment, everything else that you're paying, is really critical. But there are other numbers in between. So what else are you focused on?
So another numbers that I'm really like into it is all the time. It's an actuals and budget, like what we have budgeted for the month, for the week, and for the year. So it's kind of like we'll look at, okay, cool, like we'll have, like today, later today, I'm having a meeting with our team, and we're just going to go over what we had budgeted for the month, and then where we currently are, right? And then from there, we're able to see, okay, cool, like we're off. Like let's say we projected this month that we were going to hit $200,000 in sale, and we're at 190. Then we're able to see, okay, the actual versus the budgeted, and that we're $10,000 off. So hey, let's start giving a shout to all those, start following up with all the past customers that didn't close this month. Let's try to see if we can add, some sort of promotion or something like that that can help us get, to that 200,000. So actuals and budget, and what you have, budget, it's a really important one too, because that's what kind of like helps you get to the goals.
I could go on. There are like four different soapboxes I could stand on right now, Candelario. I get heated sometimes. I'm trying not to do that. Did you say that the ones who didn't close last month?
So
So
yeah, so for the month, right? For the month, of
yeah,
for any open estimates that we have. So we're able to see
right.
that on our form, like, okay, how many open estimates do we have that we can close?
Okay. Yeah. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see in the painting industry is people not following up on leads, right? And a super passive attitude. So people thinking that, well, they didn't close on the spot. I mean, most companies aren't even presenting on the spot, which you should be, but they didn't close on the spot or they didn't close that week. or they didn't close the next week. So the answer was no. And what you're telling me is you're tracking your numbers, you have a goal, and then you're going to take responsibility to try to meet that goal if it doesn't seem like it's magically going to happen on its own. And then you're going to actually pick up the phone and call people who didn't explicitly tell you no, but haven't closed yet. That's really intuitive. That makes sense, but it's so different from how so many painting company owners operate. And I think it's really important to just take note of this mindset. If you're listening to this, a lack of an immediate yes does not mean a no, especially in an election year right now, especially with high inflation. Those projects are still being done, but the buying cycle is a little bit longer. People are taking a little bit longer to make a decision. And oftentimes the contractor, the professional contractor chucking a truck will oftentimes lose to the right buyer, but the professional painting contractor that doesn't throw in the towel, that follows up a little bit more like Candelario's doing here, oftentimes will close those projects. There, I went on one soapbox. I think I had one or two more. I'm gonna leave it be. That was one soapbox I stood on.
No, man, it's so for us, it's like before we do anything else, if there's jobs that were not closed, that they're still open, that's our main target. Like because we already visited those customers. We already had a
You've
connect.
invested a lot of time and
Yeah,
effort, money into that.
yeah. There's a lot of
You
money
bought
that
you bought the lead some way or another, right? Whether it's through your organic presence and or whether it's through paid ads or whether it's through a referral, somewhere there was sweat equity money, something that got you that lead, and then you sent someone out there, spent a lot of time driving there, gas, you spent time on the property. I mean, you've invested a tremendous amount into that lead to just walk away.
right. So if you have some open estimates out there that you haven't sold and you're trying to get to your goal, man, go start getting, get the phone and start giving all these people a call, try to make a sale.
Yeah, get the no. I mean, people are afraid of no. No is a wonderful word because no, a definitive no means you achieve the sales cycle. Not everything's gonna be a yes. Like Jason Phillips told you, 60%, that means your prices aren't high enough.
Right.
So I know he likes to close around 40%. So you should lose 60%. So the no, it stings, it hurts, it makes it feel like we lost, we did something bad. You're supposed to get that sting 6 out of 10 times. So look for it, find it. The thing that I think is the real loss is when you never know, when you just kind of let a lead disappear.
Right. Right. So definitely it's like you got to do all it takes to be able to, close this. We have in our and a lot of people probably familiar with this, but in our painting estimating software, we have approve or decline. Our goal is to be able to either, of course, get them all approved, but if not, either approve or decline. But it doesn't, we cannot just have an estimate sitting there that it just says viewed and we haven't done nothing with it, right? There's a note button there too, where we're able to notate every time that we follow up with a customer, every time that they didn't answer, every time that we sent a text message, an email, like we notate all those things. So that way I'm able to also see, okay, cool, we are following up. We tried our best to either, approve or decline, but they're just not responding.
Is that in Paint Scout?
Yeah, there's in Paint Scout we use there's a notes item in the the estimate tab, and you're able to like each go into each estimate and then notate what's going on, with that project. So we're basically all the time just notating there the date and whoever reached out to that customer.
Man, I really like observing whether they approved or declined it and then pushing for one or the other. And having
Right.
a view is no bueno. View means more action is needed on your part.
Yeah, no, and we were doing a terrible job last year on that. And we actually, whenever we started the year and started planning, that was one of our goals, right? Hey, we need to get all of the jobs that are coming through, they need to be either approved or declined, but we need to do something with that estimate.
I love it, man. So you're tracking revenue, track gross profit, net margin. You're looking into each project individually every week. you are looking at a holistic P&L every month with your CPA, and then you have budget to actual. So you set targets for yourself for every month, and then you compare, and that would be the budget. And then the actual is what's actually happening. And then you take corrective steps when necessary to do your best to meet the budget. For example, reaching out to past leads and trying to drum up business if you're going to fall short of revenue that month.
Right.
How do you come up with the budgeted numbers?
With from the past year, basically, and what we want to do this year and what's happening throughout, like, let's say last year on June, we hit $100,000, and we have the goal to grow at 100%. That we know that we have to hit 200,000, right? And then we're able to also see whenever we start the year, like how the months are coming up, like, okay, cool. Like each month it is doubling from last year. So we know that this month we can hit double too.
Love it. So you have an overarching goal, and then essentially you're going month by month, factoring in seasonality.
Right. Because you gotta see, the actuals versus, the budget, like I was saying earlier. And then we're able to track, like because we have already in our database, we have multiple years in there. So we able to track each year what's the increasing rate on revenue per year.
Yeah, and this can be for those listening, this can be harder if you've only been in business for a year or so. Sometimes the first year or two are going to be a bit different. But if you've been in business for really 2, 3, or more years, this is absolutely applicable to you.
I mean, it took me, whenever I hired my CPA, it took me like we're on the third year with our CPA, and it really has taken, I haven't finished learning everything. Like it's always constantly learning something new, but as long as you know the basics, then it's gonna, that's gonna help you a lot with your business. So whoever's starting up, like, is trying to, get a CPA or trying to dig into their numbers, just start with the basics, with job costing, getting to know if you're being profitable per job. That I'll say that's one of the main ones there.
Yeah. Candelario, this is awesome, man. Another business lesson from you. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up this episode?
No, so I think the only other important numbers there to look at, it's going to be the marketing side of things. I think that's an important one. And we have, like today, we're having a meeting with Bianca from Painter Marketing Pros, and we're going over how the month looked on terms of leads, right? What leads are, how many leads are coming from Facebook, how many leads are coming from Google, how many leads are coming from referrals, so that way you're able to track where your sources are, where the money's coming from.
Love it. Yeah, make sure if you're working with a marketing company that you get transparency, that you get reports, that you understand your lead flow and lead via source and what you're paying for that and all that. Wonderful. Candelario, appreciate you, man. This was a magnificent episode. If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.